Welcome to Feeling Fit with Carrie. So today we're going to talk a little bit about flexibility and stretching and ways to get more flexible. So a lot of people think that stretching is only for yogis and dancers, and that's not true. Or they think, well, I can't be a dancer or I can't be a yogi because I'm not flexible. It's the other way around. You're flexible because you do these activities. And flexibility is so important. It's important for, obviously if you are a dancer or you are really into yoga and you want to be able to, hike your foot up really high above your head, obviously that's something stretching will help you with. But also it helps just with overall range of motion. It helps us with everyday activities, even walking as we get older. Things tend to lock up if we're not using them properly. So we're going to talk a little bit about placement in our stretches and what stretches we can do on a regular basis to help build on that flexibility. Unfortunately, it's not something you're going to get overnight. It just isn't. Some people are more flexible naturally than others, but we all have to work at it within the confines of our body. Also, men and women generally tend to be a little bit different in that category as well. So men tend to be a little less flexible through their hips than women are. Now that's not saying that men can't be flexible there. I've seen some men that can do crazy splits and again, pick the foot up way over here. That's just not most men. So there are a lot of different things we can talk about to help with that. So I'm gonna start with a few basic stretches and then we're gonna get really into our hips today and a little into our lower back. I will have a few different videos to pinpoint specific areas. So if I miss it today, don't worry, I will have it. Also, feel free to add a comment on here. Hey, Carrie, how do I stretch this part? This part's really tight. What do I do to make that more flexible? Please feel free to ask me and I will help you out. So we're gonna start with a couple basic things. We're gonna start with a seated forward fold. And I'm gonna turn sideways just so you guys can see everything. I know y'all have heard me talk about this one in my yoga videos about sitting really, really tall, having your feet flexed, legs engaged. This is a good place to come if you really just want to center and focus in on that breath before you start any activity, or even just in life when you're just waking up in the morning or you're sitting down watching TV. Sometimes it's just nice to be in this position. Focus back in on your breath, focus in on your body, listen to what your body is telling you. So when we do that seated forward fold, when everything is lined up, we just reach up, take a big inhale. As you exhale, look at how I'm hinging over. See how I'm not rounding my back. I'm gonna hinge as far as my body will let me, and then I'm gonna round over and release. So you wanna think about reaching up out of your hips, rounding over, dropping that head. Now, if your hands don't touch your feet, remember, you always have the option, if you're way up here, putting your hands on your shins or taking your towel or your strap and that little horseshoe, holding it right here, pulling yourself down. Now, dropping that head is the most important thing I can tell you. In any stretch, it's gonna get your body forward. Gravity will take you forward. Your head is the heaviest part of your body. This stretch is great because it's gonna stretch, I feel the backs of my legs, in my lower back, even in my neck as I release. I can feel it in my arms as I reach forward. Even if you wanna pull on those feet a little, you can stretch up the backs of your calves and your Achilles. There's so many things you can do here. You can take your hands behind your back, like this or like this to open through the shoulders. So lots of things you can do here. Two things we want to think about in all of our stretches. Breathing. If it's a little intense, breathe through it. If it hurts, come up. We don't want pain, we want pressure, not pain. Also, don't bounce in and out of the stretch. Stay in them as long as you'd like, but try to stay there in that position and only go deeper. Don't come in and out of it. A good time to start out with is 10 to 15 seconds. You want to try to work towards holding it for 30 seconds to a minute for each stretch. So that just kind of depends on you and where you're starting in your flexibility. And come up, release. So we're gonna talk about our hips. So there's a few different things we can do for the hips. So the first thing I'm gonna do is roll way over onto one hip and get this foot behind me. So if I turn this way, you can see this leg is out to the side a little. If you've got it way up and you're on the top of your foot, that's gonna strain on your foot. So get it out to the side And then you're just gonna lean backwards. Now this is as far as your body will take you. So I'm gonna turn sideways again. I personally can get into this one a little deeply. If that's not for you, stay as far forward as you'd like. But the thing you wanna think about is pointing this leg down. You're gonna feel it in your quad and in your hip. Pointing this knee down. If this knee starts to pop up, it's not gonna do you any good, so sit up more. But you wanna lay down as far as your body will let you, and then just relax in here. See how my spine's starting to arch? Because I'm getting to my limit. So I'm really gonna make sure that knee is down. If I need to come up a little, I can. Getting right into this hip, getting into that hip, pointing the knee down and trying to relax my back and push my lower back down into the mat. And again, just breathing into all of these positions. Staying there as long as you'd like. Maybe you work towards going a little deeper, a little longer every time, especially if you're doing it every day or several times a week. Work towards staying a little longer. Maybe we remember yesterday we did 10 seconds, today we're shooting for 15. And then to get up and out of this, you want to be very careful not to do anything funny in your back. So I'm going to go ahead and sit up, get my arms underneath me, and push up. Sometimes we want to twist funny as we're coming up, so really try to avoid that. Obviously, anytime we're stretching, we want to stretch that other side, so I'm just going to talk about a few things as I line up the other side. Now remember, no one is perfectly symmetrical in their body. That means that you may have a tighter side or a side that's not as tight. That's perfectly normal. That is most people. I don't know that I've ever met anyone that tells me every single thing in their body is exactly the same on both sides. So we want to work both sides equally to that side's limit. So that means that if on this side I'm able to lay completely down and feel the stretch, great. But on the other side, I need to come up a little bit in order to not hurt myself. That doesn't mean you're not equally working both sides. You're working both sides within each side's limitation. And then you work on evening out and getting that other side a little bit more flexible and meeting the other side. But if it doesn't happen, that's okay. And you'll see what I'm talking about in my body in a minute when I get into the splits. Everybody has a not so great side on their split. So you'll see a lot of that in my body when I get there in a second. So again, take all the time you need. Try to use that core. Push yourself straight up and come up. Now we're going to talk about a few more things for the hip flexors. This psoas muscle is a muscle that reaches from up here, wraps all the way around the leg. It's a muscle that helps you do this, right? So we're going to talk about pigeon. It's a very popular yoga stretch. You're going to do it a million times in yoga. There's a lot of different modifications. So the first thing is getting into this S position. This is for people that are very tight through their hips. My male students sometimes work with this one, or maybe if you've been injured or you just haven't worked out or stretched in a really long time, this is kind of a good place to feel where you are with it. So I've got this foot tucked back, just like we were a minute ago. See, it's the same thing, and I'm just gonna bring this foot forward, and I'm gonna lean forward and see my left hip. I'm just gonna push it forward. So I'm gonna stretch through this hip. Feel it down in the quad a little bit as well. Now, if that's enough for you, great, stay there. No shame. Remember, we are not competitive, especially in our flexibility. I feel like that's the thing we all get the most insecure about. The person next to you is so bendy, or your teacher's really bendy and you want to be like them. Don't worry about it. Work in your body, okay? So if you want to go into our regular pigeon, I'm just going to turn sideways. Because you want a little bit more. You want to work towards pushing this hip right on the floor. We're going to be right over it. So before, we were a little off and we were working towards squaring that hip off. That's the eventual goal. So if you're not there yet, really just work towards it. When you have it, straighten out your bottom leg and get your hips right underneath you. So remember, we talked about in yoga, hips being headlights on the car. They're pointing straight down. Now, if you need to make this a little less intense, tuck this leg under you. You don't want it way over here, but you can bring it in a little bit. If you want to be a little bit more, bring it out. Just make sure you don't start to lean one way or the other. We want to be directly over those hips. Now, there's a lot of different things in pigeon that you can do. You guys all know I like to multitask. I generally don't stretch one part of my body at a time unless I'm really focusing on that one body part. So you're welcome to just come down here, hang over, and stay here and focus on those hips. You're also gonna feel it as you get more and more into it in the outer hip of the other side, of the other leg. We'll talk about it when we get on the other side. I'll face the other way so you can see. But if you want, you're welcome to take this little back bend here. You can bring this foot here, reach for this foot. You're gonna feel it in that quad, right in there. Whew, that's tight. This is my tighter side. You can get it way up into your arm and bind here, just making sure you don't start to roll back, because then you're gonna twist funny in your back as you start to let go. You can twist in your hips, so we wanna really stay right on top of your center if you're working the spine. Now, the spine may not be for you. That's okay. I'm just giving all the different options. You're welcome to just stay here and pull this leg in, or regular pigeon, or like I said, coming down here. Now, another thing about being down here is, again, different options, different levels of intensity. If you want to stay on your forearms, you can come like this, or you can actually take your arms to a T all the way down, shoulders, chest, everything touching the floor, making sure those hips don't start to roll one way or another. Really getting into this one. Breathe, breathe, breathe. I can't stress how important it is for you to breathe in this stretch. Whenever you're ready, again, take all the time you need here, but you're gonna pull yourself up. We're gonna work into a few more positions, and then we'll come back and do the other side. So what I'm gonna do is put all my weight on my back foot, and I'm gonna get this one into a lunge right here. So I'm just gonna center right over. My knee is going right over my toes. Now, you can put this back knee down, whatever you need. We're basically gonna lift that body into a kneeling crescent, doing that little back bend here. And again, I'm pushing forward into this hip. So you're welcome to stay in either one of those positions. A little bit more is to start to come down, but make sure this knee, see how my knee, it's hard to see. Let me turn this way. You don't want it to start coming like that. So keep it nice and squared off. If you are gonna come down inside, really make sure you're not doing anything funny in that hip or in that ankle. We're just gonna come back, take a little break from here, rounding over into kneeling pyramid, stretching the back of this front leg for a second. We're gonna go into our full split. So just drop that head just like we would in our standing pyramid. And then when you're ready, you can come back to here, or you can start working your way into your splits. Now, here's a couple things we're gonna talk about with the splits. I'm gonna show you from the side. If this is your splits, this is your splits. Everybody can do the splits. All it is your legs are apart. They're straight, your hips are square to the floor. So my right hip is reaching back, my left hip is reaching forward. You can stand up here, my camera will cut off, so I'm gonna keep my body low. Now, you're welcome to start to work all the way down, really working on getting those legs nice and straight. I know my back knee is bent a little bit. And work on getting all of this empty space out of the way, making your hips touch. But as you can see, even mine don't touch all the way down. That's all right. It's definitely something we work on every day. If you weren't a bendy kid, don't worry about it. Everybody says, oh, well, when you're a kid, you can do the splits. I couldn't do them when I was little. I actually am better at them now. So it's something you can work at. You're welcome to stop at any of those options we talked about earlier. So if you want to stay in this little lunge here, or even just stay in pigeon and work on loosening up that hip, that's perfectly fine. So what I'm gonna do is just plant my hands, bring my feet together. I'm gonna walk over to the other side and hang over. And we're gonna start completely over with our pigeon on this side. So I'm gonna do a few things facing you first on this one. So same thing we talked about here. Looking at how everything is squared off, to the floor. So what we were talking about earlier is when you get deeper and deeper into this stretch and you really get your hips on the floor, you're gonna feel it a little in your trochanter, right in this outer hip as well. That just depends on how deeply you have this one. So if you've got this leg way out here and you're still squaring off to the floor, you're gonna feel it. If you have it way back here, you probably won't. So it's one of those multitasking things of how hard do I wanna make this stretch for myself. So just take that into consideration. So I'm gonna come back to the side like I did before, pick my option here. Now make sure when you take this back bend, if you do, your shoulders are down, you're not craning in your neck, squishing, looking at the ceiling. Come up in your back, your head will follow, not scrunching in your neck. We don't ever wanna crunch anything in here. Keep this line long, shoulders down. You can even lift up your arms. That's a lot of pressure on those hips and that back. So think about where your body lets you go. And then you're welcome again, to take this option, whatever you need here. If you want to take this bind here, whatever feels good for you on this side. Just breathing, breathing, breathing. Take your time. Feel free to use a timer. Maybe you work through each option for 10 to 15 seconds and then work on staying longer. Or maybe you just pick one option and you stay there a really long time. Whatever feels good. I always tell people if you want to skip that bind and all that stuff up, come straight to here. This is fine with me. Staying here as long as you'd like. When you're ready, bringing this leg into your lunge just like we did before. So, giving you a nice little shot here. Everything's squared, and then bringing that back leg down and really pushing forward into that hip. And remember, you can kind of take a moment here, stretching out the back of this leg, coming into that pyramid, that kneeling pyramid. Even you can pop up on this back toe, coming into a standing pyramid, stretching the back of that leg for a moment before we work all the way down into our split. So this side is not quite as low as my other. This is my tighter side. That's okay. We never need to feel bad about it. We never need to say, well, I just can't do that side. Remember, we never say we can't. We're still doing the splits. If this is where my splits are today, this is where they are today, no problem. I just work on them. And if you do struggle with going all the way down without bending your legs, really work on getting your hands on the mat and putting weight on those arms so you can let that gravity take you down without worrying about your hips falling one way or the other or your knee falling on the floor. You can always put a cushion underneath that back knee as well as you start to push forward. Very good. And as we come out of this, I'm just gonna come back onto my knees. We're gonna talk about one more thing here. So we've talked about our psoas muscles. We've talked about doing our splits this way and this way. Now we're gonna talk about doing them this way in our straddle split. And one more thing to work those inner hips, and then we'll talk a little bit about outer. So the inner hips, you wanna start out on all fours. This is an option that has a lot of different things. So I'm gonna go through them all. So first of all, you're gonna get your knees way out to the side, put all the way down, put your tummy on the floor, pick up your feet, and then I just have my toes up, my heels down, I'm pushing my knees out. I can take this little back bend here, or I can rest here. You're just using gravity to push your knees open. Now if you want a little bit more, open your feet, put them on the floor, and then see how I'm reaching my hips back. I'm really getting deep into my hip flexors. My knees are open more. And you just kind of rock into it, finding that sweet spot for you. This can be really intense, so take a moment, breathe into it. If you're telling me, Carrie, this stretch is not happening for me, I'm not that flexible, you have more options. So you can come into a goddess squat, so you're just gonna squat down. You want your toes going out a little bit, you want your knees going right over. Use your elbows to push those knees open. You can do one of these, you can even rock into it side to side, or you're welcome to sit back and do butterfly. So all of those are really, really good to help with that straddle stretch. Now, if you do want to work that actual split, you can open your legs here and just start to push yourself forward. So if I come sideways, you're gonna see, same thing we did in the seated forward fold. Get your back forward, really get up out of those hips. And what I mean by that is I'm not crunching down. I'm lifting, using my core and pulling forward this way and reaching my legs back. Make sure those big toes don't come on the floor. Get them pointing up or back behind. Also, if you're in this forward facing stretch, what we like to call frog sit in our ballet classes, you can open your legs, push up with your body, and get your legs underneath you and come into your splits. Like so. I like to do the stick the landing like they do in gymnastics. So those are some things to do to work your straddle split. So again, find your option for those. Take all the time you need. I'm kind of rolling through all these so that way you have your options and you can pick what you need. So for the outer hip, a couple of different things. First, you're gonna take your foot like this, cross this one over, and you're just gonna push into this hip. This one's good for people that are a little tighter through their hips, especially if you sit all day at a desk. This is a really, really good one. Work this knee away, push into it. If you want a little bit more, bring your legs down. Very similar to half lotus, but instead of being way back here, I've got ankle over knee, knee over ankle. I'm making a little triangle, and then I'm just gonna come forward. You'll feel it right in this outer hip of this top leg. So you can take yourself straight down into that option. So any of those are good. There's also, if you want a little bit more, you can go into cradle, which basically you're just taking your foot into your arm, your knee into your other arm, and rocking your leg like a baby. That's why they call it cradle. You can stay right here. You can start to pick it up, get it close to your face. If you actually straighten this bottom leg and lay down, you can get it really, really in there, even try to work it behind your head. I'm gonna go ahead and say right now, it's probably not gonna happen in my body today, but I can get it pretty close. Also, working on getting your shoulder in front first and then getting it back are some things you can think about. Make sure you work both sides. Another stretch that's pretty popular is the one you do laying down. So just like we did sitting down a second ago, you're gonna pull your legs in. So I've crossed this one over, and I'm gonna use my right elbow to push my right knee away as I'm pulling my right thigh into my chest. Really try to keep those hips down, reach that tailbone down. This one is good. You'll feel it right in here. Again, outer hip, trochanter, even maybe down into the IT band, into your glute a little bit. So again, making sure we work both sides, doing what we need to do with this one. So again, everyone has a tighter side. This side is definitely needing a little bit of a deeper stretch for me. So I'm gonna go a little bit more on this one here. So those are all some different things we can think about, mostly for our hips. I always like to finish where we started with that seated forward fold, so I can talk about a few more things as we finish up here. Releasing the neck, releasing the back, letting everything go. So stay there as long as you like. Remember to go through whatever option feels good for you, and take your time. Don't be in a hurry with any of these. We don't want any kind of injuries. Make sure that you are being very safe and comfortable. If you're on the floor, make sure you have a mat underneath you. Anything we're doing on our knees, make sure if you need cushion on those knees, you can have it. And just really start to play with where your body is. So that is our stretch video for our hips. Thank you for joining me today, Feeling Fit with Carrie. Check me out on Facebook and leave me lots of feedback, and I will see you guys again soon. Thanks, have a great day.